This is Lights Camera Media, and today we will be discussing the film Jean-Michel Basquiat, The Radiant Child, as well as four of his postmodern paintings and how they relate to the gaze, as described by Lacan in his article The Mirror Stage. I'm
Michael,
Michael.
I'm Ava.
I'm Aisha.
I am Peter. So this week we had to watch the film Jean-Michel Basquiat, The Radiant Child, which came out in 2010. It was directed by Tamara Davis and it covers the life and art of Basquiat along with his struggles with fame, but also while being confronted with racism and misconceptions about himself and who he is.
Well, Lacan kind of discusses this idea of the gaze as alienation, which I think that's a lot. What's the word? I think that's kind of like a main theme in when you look at look Basquiat's interviews or how he's talked about or back in the 80s how he was talked about. He was definitely alienated. Everyone was just so baffled by everything about him. So Lacan said Lacan's gaze kind of disrupts the subject's sense of self with by showing them how they are being seen by the other. So, you can see that in the documentary when they describe Basquiat as primitive, like a primitive artist, and then he's immediately like, "Do you mean ape-like, like an actual animal? Are you comparing me, a black man, to a literal monkey, you weirdo?" Which is just like the 80s racism is insane. So yeah, so I don't know. He's just being constantly confronted by white art collectors, critics, and all of them. And they kind of make him into this exotic person where I mean, of course he's a very interesting individual. Like he's very talented, very we know he's very intelligent, but they kind of I don't know, they're always talking to him with their head tilted, eyes wide open, like they're looking at some alien. So yeah.
I I would add to that, there's a moment in the film where I think it's the art director for MoMA. I
Mhm.
could be wrong about who the person who says it is, but she kind of says the issue with museum collections is and art collectors are sometimes are uncomfortable with things that they are new and different, which is ironic because MoMA is the modern art museum. So like you'd expect them to be like all for like different and things like accepting of that. But
Yeah.
it kind of I think it kind of touches on like more of a universal idea of what we don't understand makes us uncomfortable.
People don't
And
like
I think that
change.
is what the gaze is as described by Lacan. Like being different makes others uncomfortable, even if they say they are accepting of the difference.
Yeah. Yeah, they just were very clearly did not want his him and his artwork and his whole.
But they did want his artwork. They just didn't want it to be his artwork in a way. Like I
Yeah.
think like they didn't have that issue with like Jackson Pollock or Andy Warhol. They didn't have that issue. Although Andy Warhol's like career kind of like has like this really interesting arc that you can look at, and it really goes downhill towards his later life, which is talked about in the film a little with his connection to Basquiat. Like their collection doesn't do well and doesn't sell their collaboration. But yeah, I think there is a racial aspect to it. They also talk about the idea of the downtown 500
Mhm.
towards the beginning of the film, which I think is like the embracement of the difference, but then it becomes too mainstream. I think this is the same issue with the street art movement of like it starts out like in a as a subculture and then gets so big that you push the people that you originally were close to away.
Yeah, just art gentrification.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was about to relate him to having aura because like his his paintings were like so good, but it was positive and negative aura in a sense because like he like his paintings were like really unique and new and like, it attracted a lot of people, but they didn't like the person behind it just because of who he was, like and his like racial background and stuff like that. I guess you could say like he had like both positive and negative aura in a way.
I guess the
That makes sense.
negative like of his art career would
Nick, yeah.
oh yeah. Were you gonna
I was
say
gonna
something?
say like negative, like not in like a bad way, like not in like, like he was emitting like,
Negative to him.
yeah, yeah, negative too. Like
Yeah.
people looked at him in a negative light, even though it really shouldn't have been in that light.
I
Yeah, he
mean,
was kind of like his whole like persona, which he didn't seem like that like crazy like he didn't have a big I mean, I don't know, I would say he had a big personality, but it wasn't like an extravagant personality, I would say.
I think
Um,
it kind of goes to what I wanted to talk about, the idea of like the
yeah,
self-fulfilling prophecy of becoming a very famous artist.
yeah.
Um, I was gonna relate it to Van Gogh, but like that didn't happen while he was alive, so that's kind of a harder connection to make. They mentioned, but they do kind of connect him to Van Gogh and I think Pollock. I actually don't know how Pollock died, so I won't say that it was drug overdose or like self-inflicted, but the idea of like becoming famous from a place of not being famous. Like at the beginning of the film, he's living on the streets, he has no money, he's tagging buildings, he's living in his girlfriend's apartment, he can't keep a job, he says that working makes him feel like he's a slave, and then he gets money, and then there's like he has all these new friends and it's a completely different group of people than he was originally with, and they want things from him and he gets
Mhm.
paranoid, and this cycle just kind of continues to the point where it just becomes self-destructive to do the art that he used to love, and it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way of, I think, what happens to a lot of artists when they get mainstream and there's too much pressure on them. I think that it happens less so with artists now. Like, I don't actually know what the art world looks like. I don't think that, I mean, I'm sure there are artists who have the same issue now, but I think the easier connection for me to make in like a media idea is a child star going, Macaulay Culkin has recovered from it, but like when he was young, he was very famous, and then he got into drugs and like had everything kind of fell apart for him. A lot of the Harry Potter actors, not the like main cast, they have done well, but like the side actors, the Olsen twins, like there's like so many examples of young actresses, Amanda Burns, like these
Bye.
actresses who were big at one point and then had like this crash out because there was too much pressure put on them. Or Britney Spears, if you want to do a musician, of like getting big and then having control put on them. But I don't think that's what Basquiat had. I think he just kind of fulfilled this prophecy of like got really famous, got too paranoid, started doing drugs. The drugs are what killed him. Um,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. It's like he became like a spectacle, like his persona became a spectacle.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so that eventually just kind of, and that I think that definitely happens with this whole idea. It kind of happens with child stars where they become like an object, and he became very aware that he was being watched, and that can, as we can see by these examples, that kind of can turn anyone like crazy.
And I mean, his role model, Andy Warhol, who kind of became like a father figure to him when he needed somebody to turn to. When he died, it kind of was the catalyst for like a lot of the things that went wrong in his life, even if that's not directly said in the film. Like that's kind of when he starts doing drugs, when shit starts going down. I do think Hawaii is another interesting thing brought into the film, where it's like the one place he didn't do drugs, and that's like kind of where he went to recover. But that's
I
neither
feel
here.
like didn't that happen to Michael Jackson? Like how he just became very paranoid. Like
Happens to most celebrities. I mean, a lot of celebrities have like PTSD. Like if they hear like a flash, they'll get anxious.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Paparazzi. So like if there's like a noise like a flash, it will trigger them to have like a panic attack. Like especially like young celebrities Like, also the media is not beneficial. I think it was bad when Basquiat was there, but also I think now, and
Now it's a whole different like
yeah, I'm thinking back like when, oh, which One Direction person died?
Liam Payne.
Liam Payne, when he died and TMZ posted his body. Like
Ugh.
like there is no limit that paparazzi will not go to at this point. Or
Yeah.
I'm thinking of like Emma Watson very famously on her 18th birthday.
That was insane, by the way.
When she walked out and she was legally 18, they started trying to get shots up her skirt.
Wasn't there also like some sort of,
And they could overly sexualize her now. So like it's like one of those things where like once you become famous, it's a very vicious cycle of being manipulated, being taken advantage of. I think Basquiat is just a very good example of, or a very bad example of what happens when you are taken advantage of, when you're like a fresh-faced 19-year-old artist who people are like, your work is cool. Let me give you money, not tell you how to manage your money. Just
Mm.
like there was no one in his life that was there for him in the way that he needed somebody to be in his life for him, I think.
when did he die, Basquiat?
He died.
In the 90s.
Okay, because
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did
he was
have
27.
he did get some a lot of fame during his lifetime, but I feel like he did in a sense gain even more after he died, like a lot of more artists. Because I feel like I could be completely misremembering this, but I feel like they said that he has kind of become one of the most, iconic artists of that type. But he really only got that after he died. And he just wasn't really around for it.
I think he was pretty around for it. I mean, he was like during the film. um they kind of pointed out like this like rise, like all of the famous people wanted to be around Basquiat. He was
Mm.
at he was at CBGB's. He was at Club, is it 54 or 56?
Well, maybe
52?
not the fame, but I think the
There's Studio
respect that he
54.
should have.
Studio 54. That's what I'm talking about.
I think that the
Studio,
respect that he should have gone, he didn't really get until after he died.
yeah, the
Yeah,
respect
I think
wasn't
the
there,
death
but the
immortalized. Yeah.
appreciation for his work was.
Yeah.
I think. Um,
I think
but
I think the death,
I
definitely
think
got him the respect.
I think that's kind of what happens with most artists. Like when they're alive, their art is like well received, but I mean, with the exception of people like performance artists like Maria or Marie, no, Maria, um, that we discussed, of like that concept, like that you can only really appreciate when it is happening.
Okay.
I chose this one. The Defacement, the death of Michael Stewart. It's about police brutality. But I think that gaze is pretty prevalent in this image. You guys can agree or disagree. The one of the cops is looking at us, but it's also forcing you to acknowledge that they are attacking what is a all black figure. And you have to acknowledge that that is something that happens within the black community more frequently than any other community, or not any other community. I think people of color, not just black, face this, but disproportionately black people in America face police brutality. The subject of the painting is Michael Stewart, who died after getting attacked on his way home. I think he was doing a tag in the subway for maybe street art. But yeah, does anyone have anything else they want to add to that? Or in response?
I think you're pretty much right. To be totally honest, the entire idea of the gaze, when I can't exactly put it into words, but it's just like it's obvious that it's there, right?
Yeah,
And
it's a, so like the idea of like this image is forcing you to acknowledge that, because also most of his art collectors were white. Like these were white rich people looking at these paintings of minorities being at least in this, being attacked. Like that's what this painting is. I mean, at least in my interpretation of it. But I think that like is exactly what the gaze is. But I again could be wrong.
Yeah, I think definitely the way the cops are drawn. I mean, obviously his style is very not the figures are drawn very like I don't know, elemental. Like it's
Like,
just like lines, like kind of the
yeah,
But I
like
also
a child in a
simple.
way, kind of like a
Yeah,
kid.
yeah. I mean, they
Strong.
talk
yeah,
about in the film that he holds the tools like a child would hold the tools.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like
yeah, 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 yeah.
it's
So
like
and
a
I'm going like this because this is what I imagine the pen looks like in his hand.
this is how I hold a
yeah,
pencil. So I mean, it's probably like something like this.
yeah. So along okay, so the way that the policemen are drawn along with the like choice of like literally like a pig, like what you would think like a cartoon pig pink would look like. I think it kind of comments on like just how like there's a whole stereotype that cops are dumb, which which I won't say if I subscribe to that idea. And like the whole like cops are pigs thing. And I just think like the one on the right side, like the one
Yeah.
who's looking at us, his look, his look is
Sorry.
just so
It's
like
just like it's like goofy, bro. It's like
he's yeah, he's just looking
But I also
art is great because I'm actually getting like heated right now over this painting. But yeah, he's
I
just
also
looking at you with such a dumbfounded look because cops
but it's also like he's been
um
caught in the act.
sure, but he's just like, okay, like what are you gonna do about me doing this? I am the one with the baton and I am the law. Like you can't really do anything about it, you
Yeah.
know? And like I don't
Mm.
know, I feel like that black mass at the bottom is probably just like another black body that they killed. And there's like another one behind him that's like a smaller triangle, which could be like the future
I
black body
also
that will definitely be killed. I don't know.
wanted to add that I actually don't know if this is the frame that this painting is in because it's probably not. But if it is, that's crazy.
Yes, yeah, it looks like
It's
so
like
out
a
of
crazy choice to make. Like it might be, but it looks like too photoshopped to be the actual frame. But I also feel like that is something like a white person would do.
Mhm.
Like a white person would take this like street art style and put it in an ornate frame. Like I don't know how else to say that. Okay, I'm gonna
Which
stop
is
sharing.
crazy because like this is so obviously like what it's about. Like
Mhm.
I because it's literally like what three main figures and then a title. Like
yeah.
it's so obvious what it's about. So
And like you can
yeah.
see like this the star and like the little swirl above his head is like him essentially being like knocked out and like
Mhm.
and stuff like that. Like, the brutality of it. I don't know
Yeah.
what the
So this is Hollywood Africans. First, when I was first looking at this, I thought this said self-portrait as hell, but it's as a heel.
Mhm.
But running with what I thought before, I was gonna say, I think that's very like I was gonna say it's very postmodern to be like self-portrait as hell. Like that's very like stupid and
But
like
we acknowledge that that's not what it says.
but we realize that's not what it says. And I was like, well, that's literally like a gaze moment, self-portrait as hell. Um, so then I don't really know what he means by self-portrait as a heel.
I
I
mean,
don't know. Number three, is this his third
I
like
feel like they mentioned in the film that sometimes it wasn't where you thought the sentence should go. Sometimes it was like a cross instead of vertical. Like sometimes like it just read in a different way. But I don't know.
why is there like
yeah,
a 200
um
yen thing?
200
Did you see
yen.
that?
Yeah, maybe he was in what is that Japan who has yen? Maybe he was in Japan when he did this. Um,
He wasn't. He was in LA.
Yeah.
oh, I mean like I don't know where he was when he made this specific
Hollywood.
I was
um
in LA because this is probably one of his later pieces when he was in LA, right?
or like he was thinking of a time where he went to Japan because I feel like I don't know rappers in Japan has always kind of been like
Mm.
they've always had that kind of, I don't want to say fascination, but like they've always enjoyed Japan and the rap and hip hop community. Um,
What
which
is banana?
No, that's Buana.
Oh, thank you.
yeah.
I'm pretty. What is
Yeah, that's why I
gangsterism?
mentioned that like
200
hip hop
yen.
and stuff because it says gangsterism. Yeah, I don't know. I like this painting a lot. Um, this reminds me of obviously these people were not around at this time, but this like is reminds me of Tyler the Creator and then like Lil Wayne. Um,
Where would
that's
you think the gaze pulls in here?
I mean, I would just see it with this like self-portrait on the side. I think maybe I could argue that because it's just on the side, he he was really like kind of pulled whenever when he was in like these little art galleries or whatever or art shows talked about, he was very pulled to like the center and the art world, but I think maybe he kind of viewed himself more of like a side character.
Mm.
Not necessarily a side character, but just he didn't think, he was the center of this like this art world, this kind of like hip hop world. He was just kind of in the mix, like surrounding it.
Uh,
Yeah.
I think like cause I'm trying to match the color of the writing to like each other because like he does use like a bunch of different colors to write like words and like sentences, but like some of them don't match and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
like Hollywood Africans from the and 19 is crossed out, so from the 40s. Um, and like I don't think self-portrait as a heel, number three, I don't think that's like one full sentence.
Okay. So it could just be self-portrait.
Right, so this is Untitled Head from Jean-Michel Basquiat, which I feel like just the way the way that the lines are drawn just makes me feel like this is how my brain works, how there's no straight lines and it goes all over the place and it's just overall chaotic. And it's a self-portrait and, you know, there's just a lot of crazy going on and that speaks to me.
How do you think
But
it relates to gays? That's what you have to say about it.
well,
Yeah. Mm.
I think the fact that it is looking directly at you is basically, I guess,
yeah.
the gaze. And, you know, again, it's chaotic, and I feel like this is just how brains work and mind how my brain works, and it just speaks to me.
Mm.
You
Also,
know, such a great
I think
word
this is
writer.
a
This is the one, that's the one that's on my back. Wait, can I show it?
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
you show it, show it.
Oh my God. All right. Legendary. Wait, can you guys see it? The full thing? Look
Yeah.
at that.
Oh yeah,
Look at that. Yeah, yeah. Come
Wait,
on.
no, is that different or what?
Is that different or is
I
it
think
It's a
this?
that's a
different
No.
different one.
Look.
untitled
It's
head.
a
Is that a
different one.
different one? Hold on, let me find the
Is it
I don't know.
multiple?
I think there's
Yeah, it's a
multiple.
bunch of them. There's a
Oh,
bunch of them
I
on there.
see.
He died in 88, so not
Yeah.
as
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think bro is
I just
cooking
wanted to
still.
retroactively correct myself because I did say he died in the 90s,
Yeah, he died late 80s.
late 80s. I
He was
said early
27.
90s. I said like 92, but I
You were
was
close.
wrong. Anything else anyone wants to say about this before we move on to Michael? Peter.
Yes.
Correct.
No, I've said what I wanted to say about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like this painting. It's like another one of his like untitled works. It was made in like 1981, I believe. Um, I don't know. It kind of just like looked kind of like cool, but also kind of like all over the place where it was like distorted. It wasn't really a head like per se, but it's like actually no, it is a head, but it's like a mask like head, and like if you like zoom in, there's like stuff inside the mouth that like to me it kind of looks like a room, and like that red
Mm.
thing kind of looks like a couch, and like the blue the like the blue greenish thing on the bottom kind of looked like a floor and stuff like that. So like in there, it kind of looks like a room. It's I don't really know how that like, fits in with the head per se, but to me, like that's kind of how I saw it. It was just like a bunch of chaotic like symbols because you have like the it kind of looks like a tic-tac-toe board up on the top um of the head of the skull. Um, it's just like all over the place, and it's like almost like the gaze of like the other per se, where it's like it's so difficult to define and like kind of categorize. It's kind of like it's such a raw drawing, whereas
Yeah.
like you can't de like when you look at it, you don't know what like to say at first because like you don't really know what you're looking at. Like when I first saw it, I was like, "What is this?" Like, and but then like like I looked kind of deeper into it and I started like nitpicking things out of it that like from like whether it's different coloring, whether it's like the room I mentioned. Um, I think it was just made to be super fragmented and holding the gaze of the other. Like it's like being seen but not being understood. Like that meaning. That's what I got out of this.
Yeah, I mean, I know he hated to be compared to Picasso, so I'm sorry, Basquiat, but like you I'm thinking you can see my mouse. You can't, but there's like a little on
Sorry.
the right
Where do you
side,
need
there's
my
like a little
mouse?
nose, like a little white
Oh
triangle. Yeah, that
yeah.
thing. Um, and then the eye kind of is in line with that, so it looks like it's somewhat like looking the other way, which is,
But it's
Picasso
there's also
thing.
one facing you.
I understand it now.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
so,
yeah, yeah. I see that there's
There's
the
two
face facing
faces,
you, but
one
like
facing
similar
you.
to Picasso and how Picasso like played with what like perspective and faces. So I think, the other, I don't know which one the other is in
I
this.
understand.
I was gonna say like the one that's facing the other
I think the
way.
one facing away is the other.
The other,
Wait,
yeah.
I think what this is basically, um, it is like a black artist or like a black person under a white gaze. But like,
Yeah.
Hmm.
yeah. But like now that you said it looks like there's two faces now. Now I'm kind of confused.
Yeah, like those could be like the art dealer gallery, and
Yeah.
that's like I want to say Lacan. That's Basquiat, kind of dealing with the stress of it all. Thank you for coming to this week's installment of Lights Camera Media, where we discussed Jean-Michel Basquiat in his in the documentary The Radiant Child, and where we discussed some of his artwork pieces and how they relate to Lacan's idea of gaze. Thank you. Bye.